Good morning. Welcome to the Healthy Kids Community Challenge Professional Development Day, Choose to Boost Nutrition in Schools. My name's Christina Smith, and I'm the local project manager for the Healthy Kids Community Challenge here in Hastings and Prince Edward counties. Thank you all for coming today to learn more about increasing opportunities for nutrition education in schools. To start things off, I'll give you a brief introduction of the Healthy Kids Community Challenge and go over a few logistics for the day. The Government of Ontario invited local communities to apply to participate in the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, and Hastings and Prince Edward counties were one of 45 communities chosen to participate. The challenge is a community-led program where partners from different sectors, such as public health, education, recreation, and local businesses, work together to implement activities to promote healthy weights for kids. This challenge is the first of its kind in Canada and is based on a best practice recognized by the World Health Organization. The goal of the challenge is to decrease the prevalence of childhood overweight and obesity in Ontario through community-based programming. And the challenge is one component of Ontario's Healthy Kids strategy, which the Ontario Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care released in 2013 in the report called No Time to Wait. The ministry provides the information for each theme and rolls out a new theme every 9 months. Themes promote protective factors for healthy weights. Theme 1 was Run, Jump, Play Every Day. The theme encouraged physical activity through a mix of active play, active transportation, sports, and structured physical activity. Some of the local initiatives that we were involved with was a physical literacy conference, teaching games for understanding workshop, and a nature play day. Theme 2 was Water Does Wonders. The theme encouraged kids and families to reach for water when thirsty instead of sugar-sweetened beverages. And some of those initiatives included Water Month in schools, providing water refilling stations to applicants, and gave water bottles to elementary school students. And theme 3, which is happening right now, is Choose to Boost Veggies and Fruit. This theme encourages kids and families to make vegetables and fruit part of every meal and snack. And I'm going to go into more detail now of the initiatives that we are organizing for theme 3. The first one is a Professional Development Day for elementary school educators, which is happening right now. Thank you all for coming. The second item on our action plan was the Healthy Kids School Pledge and Veggie and Fruit Month. So all schools have the opportunity to take the Healthy Kids School Pledge and participate in Veggie and Fruit Month, similar to Water Month activities from the Healthy Kids Community Challenge from last year. And to support the implementation of Veggie and Fruit Month, we've developed an administration package, a teacher's guide and classroom activity package, and a launch party video. So all of these resources can be found on the Healthy Kids website. We will also be sending out student giveaways to all the schools. Each elementary school student will receive a Healthy Kids Community Challenge lunch bag, an apple, and a Healthy Kids Community Challenge postcard. These will be delivered the first week of October. Our third item on our Theme 3 action plan is the Leaders of Change project. And application deadline has been extended to Friday, October the 6th, 2017. This is an opportunity for schools, daycare facilities, and community organizations can apply to be a leader of change and commit to making a program or policy change to help increase the accessibility and consumption of vegetables and fruit with children and families in our community. If you are a successful applicant, you could receive a garden tower with supplies or a catered taste testing event for your organization. You'll be hearing a little bit more about the Tower Garden in one of our sessions this afternoon. Our fourth item on our action plan is to increase the capacity of our Good Food Box locally. So the Healthy Kids Community Challenge has purchased 1,200 new bins for the Community Development Council of Quinte. These bins will be used for their Good Food Box program and will increase the capacity of the program by about 30% for delivery to our community depots without having to increase the number of trucks that they use. This program is able to continue to grow without added transportation costs. Our fifth item on the action plan is our ongoing social marketing campaign. The Healthy Kids Community Challenge is very active on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, sharing all the key messages from our themes. You can follow us online to stay up to date on activities and information. And the social marketing campaign also includes our radio ads and our print advertising, posters, and etc. throughout our communities. And that wraps up our action plan items for Theme 3. So today we're here at Choose to Boost Nutrition in Schools. So today's objective is to increase the capacity of educators to deliver nutritional education. We'll start with two fantastic speakers this morning, and this afternoon we'll have our breakout sessions with a little bit more hands-on activities. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who comes all the way from London, Ontario. Andrew Fleet is an avid gardener and local food enthusiast. As the founder and executive director of Growing Chefs Ontario, Andrew has designed, implemented, and coordinated several successful food education programs that have served thousands of children and youth in London and area. Andrew has coordinated the School Food Education Project in London since 2008, has been offered in over 75 schools and involved over 40 local professional chefs. Andrew contributed to the design and pilot of the Cook It Up program for at-risk youth with the London Community Resource Centre and the Fresh Food Frenzy project with the Covent Garden Market. Both programs have now been adopted by Growing Chefs and are being run under Andrew's guidance. In 2015, Growing Chefs Ontario was a finalist for the Pillar Community Innovation Awards in the Impact category, and Andrew was named as one of the top 20 under 40 Business London's magazine's list of Londoners working in the local business community. Over the past 15 years, Andrew has worked as a restaurant manager, cook, server, and bartender in several national award-winning restaurants in London and Vancouver, BC. This morning, Andrew will be introducing us to the value of food and nutritional education in schools. He'll be providing examples from his own experiences and the programs he's developed. Please give Andrew a nice warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure to come down here and talk about the stuff we've been doing in London in April coming up next year. It'll be 10 years. I'm the founder and executive director of Growing Chefs Ontario. What we're going to go over in the next hour, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and just where Growing Chefs came from. I like to call the next section Observations from the Front Lines of the Food Education. I like to call it a battle. Sometimes it feels like a battle. And to give you a little overview of our programming, strictly for the purposes of ideas. Most of the things that you're going to see that we've been doing for 10 years, I stole or adapted from somewhere else, whether watching the Food Network or just hanging out. And I've been blessed to be able to see the inside of hundreds of classrooms, which means I've seen some amazing teachers at work and steal little tidbits. So hopefully there are some ideas that you may want to steal yourselves. And then going to tell you a little bit about our newest project, which we just started in the last few months, which is our own headquarters, and it's the Growing Chefs Food Education Center. So that's what we'll be going over. Oh, look, there's more. This is going to be interesting. And then just some food for thought at the end. Like everything, I like to start off with inspirational quotes about food. I've chosen all of these because there's a little nugget in each of these quotes that says something to me. So if more of us valued the food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. And I think sometimes we forget that, especially as a parent, food is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a celebration. It's supposed to be something that makes us happy, brings us together. One cannot think well, love well, sleep well if one has not dined well. I would add learned well in that as well. Nothing would be more tiresome than eating and drinking if God had not made them a pleasure as well as a necessity. And cooking demands attention, patience, and above all, a respect for the gifts of the earth. It is a form of worship and a way of giving thanks. That was Judith R. Jones on that one. It's one of my favorites too. Who says this one? Pavarotti. One of the very nicest things about life is the way we must regularly stop whatever it is we're doing and devote our attention to eating. There's like a double funny in there. All right, so my story. I began working as a dishwasher in 1996. School was not my forte. I was that annoying child that all of you hoped you wouldn't have in your class. The ass in the front going, why are we learning this every 2.5 seconds and never listening to the answer? For me, that answer came when I started working in restaurants. And for me, it was the first day when a chef handed me a recipe for salsa and said, here's all the ingredients. You just have to chop it up in the food processor, put it together, make some salsa. And I was the idiot that said, chef, this recipe is for 6 portions. Is that what I'm making, 6 portions of salsa? And he said, yeah, I want you to do that every 20 minutes for the entire night, make 300 portions. And I didn't know how to do the math. Over the next few days, I regularly almost lost my job as my chef found out that I didn't know how to emulsify liquids and I kept breaking my beurre blanc. I didn't know how to translate a recipe, I didn't know where foods came from, and all of these links to like curriculum things that I figured I'd never use started blowing up in my face. And for me, it was cooking that brought it all together. At the same time, I was a horrible eater. I was super picky, and I ended up one day on the line working with Chef Robert Clark. He's an amazing chef. He started the seafood sustainability program at the restaurant I was working at in Vancouver. That's now been adopted by over 500 restaurants nationally. And I was making salads. And Chef Clark was adamant that every single dish that you make, you had to taste before you put out because it has to be perfect every time. And I had never tasted any of the things that I was making. And it was really interesting because I was old enough to be aware of the fact that, my first taste was just don't grimace because I don't like pears and blue cheese and beets together. And my second taste was worse than the first one, and my third one was all right, a little bit better, and then gradually I'm on 30, 40, 50 tastes through the night, and all of a sudden something happened in my brain, and I went, I don't like this. I'm still not gonna order this, I wouldn't eat it, but I can taste that it's right. I can taste that it's perfect. And this analogy hit me in my head where it was like, you know what this is like? This is like when you jump into a swimming pool and the water's too cold, and you have that moment where you're like, yeah! And you have a choice, right? You can jump out and never go swimming again and go, swimming is awful, it's not for me, it's too cold. I did it once, it felt awful, never doing that again. Then you miss out on all the fun of swimming. And your taste buds need to get used to new flavors the same way you need to adjust to the temperature of water. And we do an absolutely horrible job giving children an opportunity to let their taste buds adjust to new flavors. We just don't ever do that if parents don't do it at home. And in fact, imagine how much fun swimming would be if someone's standing on the side going, just be in there, just be cold for a second. And that's what we tend to do. We're like, just take a bite and take another bite. And it turns into this negative thing. And I think that was the analogy that hit me at that time and went, oh great, my taste buds have adjusted. And all of a sudden it wasn't anxiety to taste new foods anymore. It was just flavors that I could decide if I liked or I didn't like, but I could also analyze and think about as a chef. And that change for me was everything. My whole world opened up and I started loving food, and it became a creative thing where I could put flavors together in fun ways and create new things. And suddenly I could make something and people would look at me and go, hey, this is really good, which had never happened before with anything I'd ever produced in life. And it became empowering, and I fell in love with the whole process of food. It was at that time I had a conversation with a pastry chef who worked in the restaurant that I was in. Her name was Mary Schwartz. I was telling her about my epiphany with food, and she said, you know, it's interesting, almost everyone who works here has that epiphany. If you get to work with Chef Clark, you start to fall in love with food. Some of it is just how passionate he is about food and how good he is at combining flavors, and some of it is learning about the story of where your food comes from. And when you connect with that story, it's hard not to make different changes, or how to make changes with the food that you choose in your life. And her problem was if you didn't work there, or you couldn't afford the $350 a plate ticket price to sit down in the restaurant, you didn't get exposed to any of that world. So she created this project called Growing Chefs to get the chefs in the restaurant into schools to cook some food with kids and have fun doing it. And I thought that was a great idea that I never wanted to participate in. And my owner of the restaurant, who invested some money in starting it up, said, guess what? If you're a chef in the kitchen, you're volunteering for this program. So I ended up driving to a school one morning at like 7:30 in the morning, having closed the restaurant the night before, a little bit hungover. I'm driving with Chef Clark. He is literally Gordon Ramsay's character in real life. He's a scary man to sit next to. I was questioning every decision I'd made in my life that had brought me to this point of going into a school. And an hour later, I left going, I think I found what I want to do. It was amazing. My parents are both teachers, my sisters are both teachers, and it kind of was this coming together of worlds for me. So in 2008, when after my daughter was born and my wife announced that she was moving back to London to be closer to our family, and hopefully I would be joining her, decided to start, as an experiment, maybe Growing Chefs will work in London. We started the project in 2008. We went into 2 classrooms, one of them being my mother's, on the year that she was retiring. And it caught on. And last year, at the end of the school year, our program had reached over 7,000 children across London, and we now employ 12 full-time people that do nothing but teach food. Our mission is to get kids excited about healthy food, and that's the whole point, is it should be fun. It should be a celebration. It shouldn't be anxiety-inducing, which it is for lots of kids. So we do a lot of song and dance to try and break down those barriers and just have some fun along the way. Our vision is to build and maintain an empowered community that is engaged with our food system. There's some more down there, but you'll see it online. And our goals are to get chefs involved in the community, to provide them with an avenue to be able to give an hour of time and spend that whole hour of time working with kids and sharing their skill set and not having to do any of that organizational work. We also want to give children the confidence, the knowledge, and the enthusiasm to continue cooking and exploring healthy foods at home. And our last goal is we want to change the way that we teach kids about food. We want to change the food education landscape. So there's some out-of-date statistics for you. As according to StatsCan in 2007, 65% of children across the country are not meeting the daily recommended intake of fruits and vegetables. In 2015 in London, Ontario, that number's closer to 85%. So it has gone up significantly over the last 10 years. It's a big problem. I like the cartoon there because I actually had that conversation in a grade 6 classroom 2 years ago. Does cheese come from plants or does it come from animals? And they didn't know. And they had an awesome conversation about it. And the teacher and our team just kind of sat at the side and went, this is cool. And they figured out the right answer, but it was a conversation. And it was just interesting to see, as the teacher noted to us, it's interesting when you suddenly realize there are gaps in there and there's something that kids hadn't connected on their own. Okay, so this is the part where I make some sweeping generalizations about the education system. So we're going to go there now. Bear with me. Hopefully there's a point in there somewhere. We are asking children to make healthy decisions. In my opinion, we are not giving them the skills to actually be able to make them. And we hear from parents all the time that we are putting a nearly unsolvable problem in their hands. Be healthy. But my mother and father were the first generation of people, again, generalizing, that weren't taught to cook by their parents and grandparents. It was post-Second World War, and all of a sudden it became a thing that you could have a freezer in your home. That was like a class thing, and you could fill it with pre-prepared meals. And if you didn't have to spend time cooking and preserving foods and canning and all those things that you did, you were doing well. And that was a thing. So my parents never learned how to cook, and I didn't learn how to cook, and now I have kids, and on it goes. And as you see, anytime you have these kind of big changes at like a higher level, often you don't see the symptoms of those changes for like 20 or 30 years. And here we are. We've got a whole bunch of health problems. Our old health minister from a few years ago, at the announcement actually of what became the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, we were lucky enough to be present when they announced this funding. I think this was 2013 or 14 off the top of my head. And they did the announcement at one of our programs. So I was very thrilled for that. And she said, children's and our just communities, people's unhealthy decisions around food is costing the province of Ontario $4 billion a year in healthcare costs. That was her quote. I'm not going to back that statistic up, but she said it must be true, right? So what's the problem? Well, for better or worse, we tend to teach things in silos. They're divided into subjects, and food does not have its own silo. It kind of fits into a bunch of other ones a little bit, right? So it just kind of gets put in there however you like. Even though we know that there's a really good impact for food education. In fact, it's been proven that when you learn more about food, it aids in the development of all these other subjects. And the more you know about food, where it comes from, how it grows, the different names given to foods, how we use our senses with foods, what they represent or mean in different cultures, all of those things, the more you know about it, the more likely kids are to develop better eating habits. Those are things, just facts that we know. But we don't apply that to the classroom. So our little stock image teacher guy, can you imagine if this is how we taught kids about sports? I'm going sports analogy for this one. You could use music or science or pretty much any other subject. But imagine if this is how we taught sports. Identify the balls and make sure you can correlate them to the appropriate sport. Can you do that? You know that's a football? You know that's a baseball? Great. Now we'll teach you the rules to the sports. We'll even get into some detail, like some offensive and defensive strategy. We even learn some statistics about teams in past that are really good. We'll go right into that. We'll even make it interesting to follow in the classroom. Now that we've done all that, you know about sports, everyone's gonna go outside and play, right? Everyone's gonna be a really good soccer player, a really good football player, right? That's how it works. But it doesn't work. You have to give kids a chance to go out on the field. You have to give them a chance to run around and play and fall down and have fun and win and score a goal. All of those things are super important if you want them to do it. But we don't give kids a chance to actually cook and taste and play with and learn about food in the flesh. It's done through, how do we teach kids about food? What is the way? Well, we got this, and I am not going to diss this. This is a system that we have, and the information is, for today's purposes, great. It'll work. My problem with this is that that's the exact same graphic design that my parents had in school. As far as I know, somewhere in the 1950s, someone designed this, and it has not changed since. And regardless of the information that's in there, it's freaking boring to look at. And then we go to the grocery store, and kids are bombarded with this. And I don't know what a cereal straw is, but the font is exciting, and there's a cartoon character on it, and you can get a free t-shirt, and it looks fun and exciting, and it catches your eye, and it works. My kids have not ever eaten a cereal straw, but that box would go like, hey, what's that? That looks like something I want in my life. This one I love because there's nutritional information on this box. It's apparently gluten-free, and it's got vitamin C in it, and strategically, directly next to it, there's implied peer pressure. Do you dare to eat the thing, whatever the thing is? The double dare berry, very natural. But again, it works. There's like billions of dollars has gone into studying to make sure that this works with kids. So why is it that when we come back to this, why are we losing this fight? And it's kind of obvious. We can do better than this. We can present this information in a better way that's going to get kids pumped about it. All right, now put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. I have no problem with this. This is how we teach about plant growth. It's great. From the earliest kindergarten ones, you take away the outside to all the way up to high school where it just gets more and more detailed. Kids are great. They know how plants grow. The problem with it is we rarely, unless any of you take the initiative to apply food to this diagram at some point, this is what happens. Do you see it? I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of carrot trees or magical Dora the Explorer trees with like bananas and grapes and apples and carrots all growing off them at the same time. And it's not that this little girl doesn't know how plants grow, it's just that we haven't connected that dot. There's that gap again that we've identified. And this is the time that we took 12 kids on our summer camp to a community garden to just pick the ingredients to make salsa. And guess what? None of them knew to look under the ground to find an onion, not one. These are kids 9 to 12 years old. They just came back and were like, there's no onions in the garden. That's a problem. Somebody should have known just to dig under the ground. So we do our best to address this through what we call the School Food Education Project, brought to you by the Western Fair District in London. Last year, we ran the program in 9 full schools. It also included 14 field trips to the farmers market in London, and over 3,500 students participated. So I'm just going to walk you through what the School Food Education Project is to us. The Growing Chefs team moves into participating schools. We move in a van load and a half of equipment. It requires an empty classroom or storage closet or staff room or anywhere where we can put said equipment, and we can set up and prepare our food and organize our equipment, and we go into each classroom in the school, and every classroom, depending on their grade, gets a different lesson. This is junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. First, we go on a tasting adventure, exploring how we use our senses with food, and we taste lots of different things. What happens when you close your eyes and taste something? What happens if we're asking kids to put something they're not familiar with in their mouth, but talk about how it sounds, or how it feels, or how it smells, instead of how it tastes. Because it turns out, as we learned by accident, that kids are more open to doing an activity than they are to being freaked out about eating the thing. So if you can present it like they're not eating the thing and they're doing something else, it can, in a lot of cases, break down those anxieties. The second part of our activity, we give them just a plate full of fruits and vegetables, and we ask them to cut them into different shapes. We give them safe choppers, cookie cutters, and let them create a picture with food. And just have fun cutting and chopping and making shapes and colors and different sizes. And this girl made her t-shirt. This girl made Picasso. I don't know if she knows who Picasso is, but it kind of really looks like that. It's quite good. And then we sit down on the carpet and we read a story about food, and we just let them maybe have an orange bite, or eat something crunchy, or eat something green, or eat something round, or find a triangle. And then we move on to grade 1. Grade 1, grade 2 is all about seed exploration. Can you match the seeds to each vegetable? 16 kinds. Can you get it right? Why is it that a bean seed is one of the biggest seeds but grows into one of the smallest vegetables? And why is it that a beet seed doesn't look anything like beets, but corn seeds look exactly like corn? And we just explore. And they have to match things up. They can have fun looking things around, looking at things, exploring them further. They can smell them, they can touch them, they can fling them around, they can rip them open, and you find seeds in the most fun places. We didn't know where they were. And we discover that sometimes we eat the seeds straight up, but sometimes they have to grow into something else so we can eat them. So weird. And then we plant some seeds and we grow them in the classroom. I think this is called non-standard units of measurement. Is that right? Measuring the distance between when you plant the seeds with your fingers. And then we create charts and we make guesses on how fast the different plants will grow. And then we track the growth on those same charts as well, which I believe is a straight up math link. And we get our hands dirty and we have fun. And we watch our gardens grow and we measure. Turns out you can grow quite a bit of food on the windowsills of your classroom. And at the end, we harvest them. And we turn the classroom into a little restaurant after it's a little farm. And our chef team prepares the food into a little 3-course meal. And we make a menu and a prep list. We go over food safety stuff. And our chefs make a little stir fry and salad. And the customers are happy. But again, the whole point is the more they're involved in the process, the more you can break down those anxieties and get them trying different things. And it's fun when you are honest about the fact that, you know, the first taste might be shocking and weird, like the first time you listen to a Radiohead album, but give it a couple of times over and it starts to grow on you, and all of a sudden, man, that's some good albums. Sorry, I speak in analogies. And then our team's in the storage closet getting ready for our next visit. This is Chef Catherine. She's our executive chef, and she designs most of the recipes that we use. Grade 3, grade 4 is all about how different fruits and vegetables relate to the parts of the plant. So when you're eating a carrot, does it grow off the side of the plant, or are you eating a root? Oh, that's weird that you're eating a root. I've never thought about it like that before. And we bring lots of weird different shapes and colors. And again, it's that attempt to mimic the cereal straws box. Is it colorful? Is it exciting? And is it engaging? So what part of the plant are you eating when you're eating broccoli? Because it's kind of cool that when you look at it under a magnifying glass, every one of those little bumps looks like an unopened little tulip bulb. Does that mean that you're eating a flower? And again, it's all about just having fun and getting comfortable with a weird, freaky-looking alien celery root. And then we explore a little bit of math. And I think making salad dressings is an amazing way to just kind of talk about fractions. One, because you don't have to cook anything. All it requires is some measuring cups or spoons, or you can use your fingers to measure, like our friend there is. And it turns out when they're involved in the process, curious about how it tastes. So then we come back and visit. We visit each classroom twice. Every 2 different activities are related. So the second time we come back, we've explored those vegetables. We talked about what part of the plant they come from. They've learned the basic how you make a salad dressing. Well, this is a black box. Have you ever seen the shows where you open the black box and there's some mystery ingredients and you got to make the thing? So we've got something that represents every part of the plant. You can't see it super well, but that's kohlrabi is the stem. We've got little mandarin oranges as the fruit. We've got some carrot curls as the root, and that's radicchio as the leaf. Every box has a different 4 fruits or vegetables that all correlate to those different parts of the plant. Kids got to remember their salad dressing math. Got to make their own dressing. They get a variety of ingredients to choose from. Got to measure things out properly. And they got to figure out a nice way to plate it, which they do together. Lots of things to decorate. There's a little pantry on the side. Got a big clock that counts down on the front, and hopefully it feels like they're actually on Chopped, Iron Chef, you name your show. I haven't watched them in a while, and all the shows have changed, when that happens, and the kids are yelling at other shows you've never heard of. I'm like, I don't know, yeah, that one. But anyway, it's fun, and then we usually invite the principal and the teacher in to taste test with us, and they judge each plate. And what's really fun is when you find out that the teachers or the administration of the school has their own food phobias, and they get really freaked out about tasting the salads. It happens a lot more than you would think, and creates a different barrier that you have to address. But onward we go. We're getting ready for our next class. We're going to go into 5 and 6, where we're going to explore the history of preserving foods. How is it that people survived before the world of 24-hour, 365-day-a-year grocery stores? That was a thing? There was like a time when stores were closed. There was a time when you couldn't buy like anything you wanted any day of the year. There was like, you couldn't buy a mango in the middle of like June. Really? That happened? And it totally happened. And we used to have to preserve foods ourselves, like dinosaurs, and put them in a cellar and make sure we had enough food to last through the winter. And how did we do that? So we explore lots of different ways that you preserve food: fermenting and smoking and curing and drying and freezing and canning and preserving. And then the kids make their own canned pears right in the classroom. Chop them up, make the simple syrup, and jar them up. Then we come back next time. Oh, wait, first, we're gonna make a little amuse-bouche. And I like this one, the Caesar salad bite, where you've got maybe a fermented cheese and a dried kale chip and a smoked piece of pork, and you've got a preserved lemon aioli, and you've got a dried crouton, and guess what? Put that all together, really tastes like Caesar salad. And the kids get to plate it any way they want and get to think about how their presentation is gonna look. Then when we come back next time, we talk about, we call it the art of plating. And we're gonna give them about 12 different edible ingredients that we've prepared and preserved in different ways, from little citrus curls, little fruit coulis, or yogurt coulis. We even, in this case, we took an entire case of clementines and dried them and then put them in a Vitamix and turned it into clementine sand. Different granolas and lemon crumbs and lots of different things that the kids can play with. And then they get to make a chef sketch, figure out how they want their dish to look. They get to make their own edible art out of food that they preserved. This is one of the most popular Growing Chefs activities, also one of the most prep-intensive Growing Chefs activities, but totally worth it because they have fun. And can't tell you how many times, this one freaked me out, that kids are eating pears for the first time. So many times we're told that. And I know pears aren't as good as apples. On the scale of like best fruit to worst fruit, they rank somewhere in the bottom. Even when you like them, there's always better ones. But still, it freaks me out how many have actually never tasted a pear. We get told many times a week, they're like, oh, like I've had pear, like the real fruit gummies, they have a pear flavor. And last, we're going into grade 7 and 8. There's Chef Catherine getting things ready again. So grade 7 and 8, there's our black boxes again. We're talking about stir frying. And when you think about it, you've got a Thai box, a kind of Chinese box, and you've got kind of a Japanese box. But it's really all the same ingredients, right? It's soy sauce or fish sauce. It's some type of vinegar or acid. And then you've got something spicy, and you've got something sweet. All of those ingredients are present in all of them. Tweak those ingredients slightly or the amounts that you're using, and you've got like huge cultural differences. But the similarities there's way more similarities than there are differences, like our DNA. And so here we go. We get the kids to explore how they work in different cultures. We give them different vegetables. We give them the stoves and the woks. They get to measure out all the ingredients. And the idea with the black box is that they identify what each ingredient brings to a recipe, and then let's say, I don't like spicy things, which we hear a lot. Great. how do you fix that? How do you adjust the recipe for yourself? And they, as a team, have to come up with their own flavor profile. Maybe they want to do a sweet and spicy stir fry, or maybe a sweet and sour stir fry, or maybe a spicy and sour stir fry. They get to pick it. They have to adjust the ingredients accordingly, and then make their own dish. We teach them a little bit of safety. We have a different team member with every walk just to make sure that it's done correctly and safely. And so far, we have burned down very few schools. And again, plating is a big part. We give them a chance to present something in a way that they like, and we judge them just like we do with the salad class. I love this kind of pad thai variation that they took a lot of time to make look like that. And again, it's really interesting how grade 7 and 8, my least favorite age to both be and work with, is so much insecurity and out of control hormones and just not understanding what's going on. And they're amazing, don't get me wrong. But I love how the entire environment can turn into this incredibly supportive and kind environment as they want to try each other's dishes. And more often than not, we see the best sides of being that age, as opposed to the ones that I remember, which are the worst ones. And we partner with the HEAL Lab at the University of Western University, I think is what they're called now. And they do all of our evaluation for us. And it turns out it seems to be working. We've got most teachers want to have us back. All of the teachers said they thought there was a value in the program. And we've got things like 95% of the kids said doing our program made them want to make healthy choices more than they did before they had the program. And that's the encouraging stuff that you get to see. We also run a program called Growing Communities. What this program is, we realized we have all this equipment hanging around that we're bringing in and out of schools every day. And we did some reaching out to different community agencies, finding out why there aren't more cooking programs at places like the Y or community centers. It turns out they're a beast to facilitate, and they require a lot of equipment that has to be cared for, and you need people with a certain skill set to be able to teach classes like that. All of those things we realized we had. So we started this program where we just offered our services to anyone who wanted to bring us in. And we bring all the equipment, we set them up in rooms often like this. All we require is running water, set everything up on tables, and we run cooking programs. Last year we ran 135 cooking workshops in over 50 different locations across the city with 30 different partner organizations, and over 3,200 students participated. So that's like the YMCA of Southwestern Ontario, or the Boys and Girls Club of London, or the London Children's Museum, or the London Muslim Community Centre, or the London Jewish Community Centre, or the City of London, all bring us in, and on and on and on. And those classes are tailor designed to the needs of the different organizations. So they tell us exactly what they want, and we get to design it and put it in place. This is our fun, creative place where our team gets really excited about just figuring out what people want and then figuring out how we can deliver it. So this is what they often look like, folding tables with just countertop equipment. But again, I love seeing 10 kids sitting around a table who are engaged, who are listening to instructions, and really soaking up the passion that you see Chef Laura just exuding. There's our famous safe choppers, as the kids are making some, I think we're making tabbouleh salad in that one. Do I have time? I got a little story. So this one's from, we took a group from, I think the Boys and Girls Club, and we brought them to the farmer's market, and we got to give them a list of ingredients that they had to go and buy from the farmers. With every ingredient, you have to find it, you have to ask the farmer a series of questions about those ingredients, and you bring the ingredients up to the kitchen, and we make a 3-course lunch with them. This story comes from the little guy right at the back with the red hair. Comes upstairs, he says to Chef Catherine, she said, "Did you discover anything at the market that you thought was interesting?" And this little guy puts his hand up and says, "Chef, I learned what a parsnip was. Did you know they're bigger than my head?" And it was awesome, because Chef Catherine turned around and looked at me and went, "Don't kill me, we're changing the menu." And she went downstairs, bought parsnips. We had the kids just peel them with peelers, and she seasoned them and made parsnip chips in the oven. Just improv, because he was excited about it. And the part of the story that's really fun is at the end of the day, after we made this extravagant meal, we're sitting down and Chef Catherine says, what was the best thing about the day, or what did you learn? And again, he puts his hand up and says, I learned that parsnips are the best vegetable ever, which is totally untrue. They're not at all. They're way better vegetables, but that's the power of discovering something on your own, being able to pick it up yourself, make it, and then eat it. That's like truth to him now. He's going to carry that through life. Like, we put something that's not even true in his head, and that's now a fact for him. Parsnips are the best vegetable ever. And it just goes to show, with the right presentation, you can say anything. Wait, that's not a good message. And then some of our classes, we get to work in community gardens, which is really fun, and have kids pick fresh food and then bring it right inside and cook it. This is Chef Andrew, who started with us. He's the one in the chef coat. He started with us when he was 13 in one of our summer camp programs, and then started volunteering with us. We employed him as a 17-year-old. He worked with us until he turned 20 and then decided to go to culinary school. He's doing a very good job monitoring the situation that's going on there, and I would like to point out that the girl that he's working with, who is also now volunteering with Growing Chef, she's now 17, this picture's a few years old. Look at that technique. This is perfect chopping. Very nice claw. So again, everyone's properly, oversight is good, the equipment is proper, and it gives the kids a chance to rise to the occasion. That's my favorite part about this location. And again, it's all about creating a positive environment to eat the food in as well, which is something, again, in schools that we tend to not do well. Not that it's anyone's fault, but I had a big battle last year at my daughter's school because the grade 5s and 6 that were monitoring the classroom were struggling with a couple of behavior issues in my daughter's class, and decided to implement a rule that went on for a month before anybody caught it, that you just weren't allowed to talk during lunch because it was a lot easier for them to manage it. So now we have a situation where kids are sitting, not supposed to get up and walk around, they're not supposed to talk to each other, and that is the worst possible environment to try and encourage kids to eat in. And it's something that we do need to pay more attention to, and I realize that's not on our watches, but it's still happening, and it is a big part of it. That environment that we share food in is as important as the rest of the process, and as soon as you take one of those steps out, it's very hard to make the whole picture clear and consistent. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have with food education is, again, the other part that's out of our control is they got to go home too and deal with a whole other thing that we have no control about. One of the reasons why this is such a battle at times. So one of the ways we deal with that, last year we launched what we call our family cooking nights. So our family cooking nights, we send our whole team, 11 staff, we recruit up to 30 volunteers. We go into the school in the evening and we cook with 200 people at a time, parents and kids together. Our goal is that we will run at least one of these with every school that we've delivered the program in. Last year we did 9 schools and we did 7 family activity nights, so we're getting close. But these are a beast to put on, but very, very fun. So what does 200 people cooking together look like at a time? Again, we divide them by grade. So JK to grade 2 hangs out in the gym with us, and we prepare everything from flavored water to muffin mixes. We prepare the muffins ahead of time, to different salad ingredients, and we make a little bit of dressing, and the menu changes seasonally, but they get their activity. This one would be from grade 3 to grade 5, and they have to make our salad bar. So our salad bar involves chopping up a variety of fruits and vegetables, again with our safe choppers, our wall of living greens. It's from the JKSK getting ready to prepare their food. A little bit of measurement. And you see kind of what it looks like from above. And it's just every step along the way is choreographed and organized. But again, it takes about 45 people to pull it off. But very, very positive outcomes. This is the grade 3, 4, 5 again, working on their salad bar. I don't think I have any pictures, but the grades 6, 7, 8s would go and they prepare the hot food as well. So I think in this version, you're gonna see pulled pork sliders and butternut squash mac and cheese. I think will be the main course with our salad bar. Again, that's what it looks like overhead. There are 40 children with their parents preparing the salad bar in this picture. And again, everything's based on literacy and math skills in these family activity nights, so we can use those grants that already exist, that teachers or school councils or principals or parent councils are applying for, to bring in those guests and do those literacy activities. We're very lucky that the City of London decided to match any funds that were raised by schools so that we could put these on. At the same time, we also are able to offer a few schools every year who aren't able to raise the money or didn't get the grants, and we can pay for the whole thing. Again, this is still in the trial phase, so working out how to continue paying for this in the future is something that we're working on, and our plan is to be finished with that plan for next year. In the meantime, we have prepared sample grant applications that we're happy to send anyone, where you can literally cut and paste the answers. Successful grants that we've used are the one that I can't remember the name of right now, shoot, but for extracurricular, specifically math and literacy activities, there's a foundation that grants for that. Also, the Metro Green Apple program has granted for us in this as well, and those are the two grant applications that we've created those answers for. And as I said, those will be available upon request. Obviously, they have to be tailored a little bit to your specific application, but everything that's here is cutting things to a specific size, measuring things so everything's consistent, following recipes, reading through the recipes together, and all of them are kind of grade appropriate so that there are specific links. And then we do presentations for parents on how to involve your kids in cooking at home without losing your mind, which is difficult to do, but should be done and can be done. And we encourage things like, for example, with my children, and now it's something that we promote in Growing Chefs, there are days when my daughter was in grade 3 and grade 4 for the past 2 years. Some of our math homework and some of our writing homework was done in the kitchen. It was done through following recipes and cooking together and just documenting what we were making. So some of those math pages came back blank, but there were examples of recipes with pictures of what we made and did together. And we worked with the teacher to make sure that we were working on the same skill set and that she was happy with the amount of the pages that came home completed before we moved on to the cooking activities. It was something that we had a good time on and developed kind of a fun relationship to come up with those ideas. And the teachers, so far we've done this with 3 teachers, with my 2 daughters, and everyone's been very encouraging and supportive. And there's the food that we make at the end. Nice balanced meal with some things that are a little bit easier for kids to take on so that they're approaching it from a comfortable place. And then we like to encourage kids to challenge themselves and freak their parents out by showing them that they can eat something that their parents didn't know that they liked. And that's a kind of a fun way to approach it that has been received very, very well. One of our other ways that we like to do, especially when we're eating things like salad, is to encourage kids to take a bite together as a group and then look for certain aspects of the flavor. So can you find something crunchy? Can you taste something sweet? Can you taste the cucumber through all of this mess of flavors and textures that's happening? And again, any activity that takes the kids outside of thinking directly at the thing that they're nervous about tasting can help with the trying. So now I'm just going to tell you really quickly about the Beat Cafe, which we started for Chef Andrew that I told you about when he was having trouble getting a job. He wanted to come and work for Growing Chefs, so we started a program. Originally, we set up a stand at different summer festivals and would employ up to 15 youth in the summer and just set up a stand at festivals and serve food as a way to raise money and create youth jobs. This morphed by identifying a need into what we call the Beat Cafe. We have a commercial kitchen that Growing Chefs runs, and we produce up to, it's now 350 meals every single day that go out to different schools, private schools, preschools, and public schools across London. There's 6 schools we work on in the summer. We serve summer camps, and everything is made from scratch. Everything fits the nutritional requirements that the government lays out through, it used to be called PPM 150, and it's changed now, I think. And we use local and seasonal ingredients, and we've got real chefs that prepare the food with, right now, today in the kitchen, we have a student from our culinary school, we have 2 high school co-op students, and a placement student through Youth Opportunities Unlimited, which is a youth employment service that London has. Those meals are made. It costs us $5.25 to make the meals every day. It's more expensive to produce because we're making everything from scratch and using good quality ingredients. We sell those meals for $5.50, which includes delivery, which costs us about 22 cents per meal to deliver those foods. So we make no money off of it. But it gives us a commercial kitchen. It pays for the staff in that kitchen. It pays for the kitchen itself. And then we can have our kitchen to use after they're done making lunch every day to use as the home base for our education programs. Because it turns out your health unit will come to you and say, you need a commercial kitchen if you're providing programming for over 5,000 kids. That's crazy. And we had no way to pay for a commercial kitchen. This is a very roundabout way to be able to access a commercial kitchen without having to build the cost into the education programs. So because of the Beat Cafe and because it covers our costs of our kitchen, our school program for 3 hours of classroom time works out to about $32.65 per student for us to deliver that program. And our community program varies depending on how long the classes are, how big they are, and what agencies we're working with. Those agencies cover our costs when they hire us, or we apply for grants together to cover those costs. All right, doing all right. It's an example of a menu for the Beat Cafe. I hope you can read it. It's also a testimonial from one of the teachers that you can read at some point if you so desire. But I love this, and I wanted to share this with you. This is something that the Montessori Academy of London did when they started serving our lunches, and I thought it was brilliant. Just these little fun facts to go along with all the different ingredients. This was their response to the fact that all of a sudden the kids in their program were receiving lunches every day that had a whole bunch of stuff in it that they'd never tasted before, which again created those anxiety situations, and you had kids that aren't eating, and they found that even just little facts about the different dishes that the kids are eating and talking about them and learning something about them significantly increased the I'm going to say ability for the kids to be able to approach the food with an open mind. It helped so much that we decided to implement our food of the month. So every menu goes home to the parents every month for the hot lunch program, and it comes with one ingredient that's in season that month that has some little facts, a recipe, little activities that you can do as a way to hopefully bring that into the home. And it has made a huge difference just in the way that those meals are prepared. One of the barriers we have to this program is we have not figured out a way to / I have refused to individually package meals. Everything is served family style, which significantly limits certain schools' ability to participate in the program, which right now isn't a huge deal for us because we are totally at capacity and can't grow the program anymore in the kitchen that we have. But when looking at this as a model to be able to replicate is something that I haven't figured out yet. So first of all, if you have any ideas, I'm open to them. But two, serving food family style is significantly better anyway. There's a whole bunch of evidence that says that when kids can choose the food that goes onto their own plates, when they're helping each other serve the food and serve it to each other, their attitude to approaching that food and the way that they eat it and consume it significantly changes. It also builds a whole bunch of social skills around the meals that happen. So every day in this particular school, the students have to go and get their family style plates and bring them to the table, and they have to help every student put it on their plates. And it creates this wonderful, fun, and healthy environment to eat in. So with all of that, for the last 10 minutes that you have to listen to me talk, I'm going to tell you about our newest project, which is called Growing Chefs Headquarters. We are super thrilled to be able to get a lease on this used to be called Auberge de Petit Prince. It was the original fine dining restaurant in London. It was actually the original British consulate in London, Ontario as well. It was built in 1850. The restaurant's been closed. It opened in 1978 and it closed in 2014 and has been sitting empty ever since. We have turned it into the very first food education center. So the whole building is strictly dedicated to teaching about food. And every day, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of every week, we invite 2 classrooms at a time, so 60 kids come to visit us in the space. They make a 3-course lunch in our 1, 2, and 3 teaching kitchens. They learn to set a table in our etiquette room, learn a little bit of manners. They get to hang out in our learning garden out front. We've converted the whole patio into a gigantic living garden. Everything being edible. It's got fruit trees. We have bees. We have one of the beds is divided into our root, stem, leaf bed. We have a flowering vegetable bed, so right now it's filled with things like tomatillos and eggplants and chilies and beans. And then we have a sensory bed, which you can see at the back. That is all of our fresh herbs, all of our edible flowers, and things like lemongrass and leeks, everything that has a fun smell and taste. And then our fruit trees along the front, along the side, we've got all of our perennials, so our blueberries and raspberries and asparagus and rhubarb. And complete outside in the learning garden is our wood fire pizza oven. And we hired Joel. This is our secret to why our garden always looks so good. Joel looks after our garden. He spends about 12 hours a week watering, soil management, and just taking care of the plants themselves. Joel just got back from 3 years in Afghanistan where he was training new farmers there on kind of modern farming techniques to help grow different foods over there, and we're thrilled to have him. His company's called Urban Harvest Landscape. I know we're not in London, but it's cool. You should look it up. He's doing some really, really neat things. And then the whole idea is that the kids can just have fun cooking in the space. I think he's saying bam. They get to set the tables in our formal dining room. I know it's not set up like a dining room there, but it's the best picture I had. It's beautiful with the stained glass and big chandeliers, so it gives the kids a chance to be in a formal environment. And again, just that formal environment we find helps them get outside of the preconceptions they have around food and gets them just excited to be there. Turns out that opens them up to eating foods a little bit more. And then we fund all of this by hosting our own events, which some of you have been to. Where we get to make fancy food, and my chef team gets very happy because it gives them a platform to be chefs in the traditional way. And we host up to 3 events a week for other community organizations, for private business, for our partners, weddings, and then our own open to the public dinners as well. We have a 3-year strategic plan to be able to sustain the operations of the building through a combination of the Hot Lunch program and our own fundraisers. And then it would open up the space to be able to see 10,000 children, youth, and families come through and cook with us every year. Yay. So, in the last 5 minutes, just as a little bit of closing, I believe we should all, as food educators, be just looking for every opportunity we have without going overboard and taking on way too much work, but looking for every opportunity we have to involve our children in learning about the seed to plate process. And that can be involve anything from helping to wash produce, helping with portioning things. I can't tell you how many times, I would say it's probably 19 to 1 for how many children grade 7 or above. 1 out of 20 being like know how to wipe a table off if you give them a cloth, and just cleaning up, like nobody does dishes anymore. Yet it's fun when you give them the opportunity. Most kids will dive right in and do it in that fun environment, and just teaching kids some of those things, I think we're lacking a lot. Helping to peel, chop, measure, and serve is also a great way to get things started. We do this, skip one. The trick to any activities like that, we call it mise en place, or to put in place. How organized you are and the way that things laid out is the key to success with cooking. And you find out you just can't wing it. You really have to walk through every activity. If you're going to cook something with kids, my first advice, besides make sure you have the proper equipment and lay it out, is to practice that dish at home and make sure it tastes awesome. If your food doesn't taste awesome, kids are not going to dig it, and it can be counterproductive. Nothing worse than having a child go, oh, I made a thing once and it was awful, and so I just don't ever like cooking again. I love this picture that we set up. We use this for some of our training on how to organize programs, and it's just making sure, if you look at the top, we've got some potatoes. We've got examples of how the size that you want to cut them to that kids can compare them to. You've got a peeler. For that peeler, you've got a bowl to put your potatoes into. Everything around the table has a place, and there's something that's clear and laid out on where things go and what tools you need to go to be there. Nothing is worse, and you know how quickly you can lose the attention span of kids when you're working with them. So if everything's not there in front of them, it can be gone before it's even started. These are our most handy-dandy tools that I can't recommend enough. Safe choppers you can buy for about $4. You can get them from Amazon. They're called wavy vegetable slicers. Sometimes they're referred to as like a cheese knife. But they are definitely catching on and starting to market it as like a kid's chopping tool. They are sharp enough to cut through apples and carrots and potatoes and peppers and tomatoes but not sharp enough that it gets gross if a mistake is made. You have to work pretty hard to cut yourself with one of those. It can happen, but it's very, very rare. Peelers you can get for as little as $2. I recommend spending the $7 on them because the cheaper ones, those blades will just fling, flang, and fly off at any time. And when you tend to spend the $5 to $7 ones, then you'll get a lot more distance out of them. And I love, you can get these little perfectly sized cutting boards for $7 from IKEA. That's the cheapest ones that I found, little plastic ones. And again, IKEA website carries them in most places. If you don't have, do you have an IKEA here? Do you have a depot? No. Sorry. But that's the place I found. We have a depot in London now, so you can order them online and pick them up. But if cooking's too much, and it is sometimes, and I totally recognize that, you don't have to cook. What about just using food as an independent study project or to approach some other subjects? I can't tell you, this example is real life from my kids, the Growing Chefs experiment kids. My daughter was struggling with tomatoes, and we were growing some beautiful tomatoes in the garden. The picture on the side is actually the tomatoes that we grew, but she didn't want to taste them. And she's relatively adventurous. I would be lying if I said my kids weren't picky eaters as well. I think all kids are. And I just looked at her and said, well, what is it going to take to eat the tomato? Well, let's learn about tomatoes. So we just Googled what climate tomatoes grow in, and what time of the year are they fresh and local? It's right now, by the way. What family do they grow in? Whoa, that's weird. They're in the same family as eggplant? Huh, never would have seen that one coming. How many known varieties of tomatoes grow in Ontario? Anyone know the answer? It's in the hundreds. Fun facts. This one blew me away. You know why pizza is pizza? Cheese was not put on pizza until a chef tried to make a pizza that looked like the Italian flag. Cheese was white, the basil was green, and the sauce was the red. That's why pizza exists, because you wanted to give the queen something that represented the flag. That blew me away, and that was only in 1889. I thought pizza would have been a lot older than that. Flatbread is one of the oldest foods known to man. I guess that comes from Roman times, where some soldiers cooked bread on their shield over a fire. That's the story that I've heard. And I love the fact that it wasn't until tomatoes were discovered in South America and brought back to Europe. So it wasn't until settlers came over. Think about Italian food. Tomatoes didn't exist in Italian food until people came back from South America. That blew me away. There's so much interesting stuff you can just learn about food, and it all helps. Because at the end of doing this, and I will not lie to you, 20 minutes into this, it was just me in front of the computer going, cool. But as I looked up, my daughter was eating the tomato. So it can work. I just thought I'd share this with you as well, just because these are some of my favorite books. The Silver Spoon for Children. This is really cool if you know the Silver Spoon cookbook. It's one of the most textbook Italian cookbooks, but they've made one for children where all the recipes are drawn out in this fun, step-by-step way. Chop, Sizzle, Wow, also by the Silver Spoon Kitchen, is a graphic novel cookbook where all of the recipes are comic book style. Super fun. Green Eggs and Ham for younger kids. If you're a Dr. Seuss fan, there's a recipe for green eggs and ham. There's a recipe for scrambled egg super. There's a recipe for, remember in One Fish, Two Fish, there's the wink that drinks pink ink. There's a pink ink recipe that you can make. It's just pink lemonade. Pretend Soup or Moosewood Cookbook. The Molly Katzen, I've got a picture on the next slide because it is so awesome, and it has become an art project at home, and my kids, after reading that book, started making their own recipes. I love just stories about food, and again, there is research that shows, I got 1 minute, there's research that shows that even just reading a book about food while you're trying to eat the snack can help kids kind of get outside that, it's a cucumber, that's weird. So those are some of my favorite ones. This is the Molly Klatzen picture, and again, this is just zucchini moons, and this is what all the recipes look like. So every page has the adult recipe, and then you turn the page, and there's the child recipe. And again, my kids, and we're doing this now more and more with Growing Chefs, where it's draw your recipe, and it becomes an art project where they get to actually make something out of it at the end. Really fun approach that doesn't involve the actual cooking. If you're not aware of it, the Sustain Ontario greenhouse is amazing. It's just a greenhouse of wonderful food education ideas. It is local, it's made in Toronto in this area, and you basically go on and there's like resources for parents, there's research links, there's links for if you want to write that grant, and it's got sample grant applications, it's got a specific tab for teachers of different ages and grades, and there's a whole bunch of evidence-based stuff on why and how all of this kind of stuff works. And the classic Edible Schoolyard is an amazing resource and always will be as well. They're kind of the originators. Last thing I just have to say, if you're going to cook in your classroom, talk to someone from public health first. The reason I say that is because everything changed for growing chefs the first time we called public health up and said, hey, we've got this idea. We want to do a cooking class for 200 people at a time, which was responded to with, okay. I can just see that's a recipe for disaster. But sitting down at the start and going through the plan with our public health professional, with our food safety professional, and identifying what was okay to try and what wasn't okay to try from the ground level meant that we didn't have to go back and do anything twice, and it got them on board with what we were doing from the very, very beginning. They will help you understand things that you never think about, and that goes for us as well as chefs going, oh yeah, I never thought that maybe that isn't the best idea to do with kids. Or even sometimes it's just changing the tools that you're using or changing the timing that you're using, and that will help make it safer and eliminate any risk that there might be. So, and generally speaking, I found that the wonderful people at Public Health, especially if you're approaching them at the beginning, are always lovely to talk to and will be quite encouraging. I'll finish off with my last food quote of the day. It's from Julia Childs, who is the best. If you don't have to cook fancy or complicated masterpieces, just good food from fresh ingredients. This is my advice to people: learn how to cook, try new recipes, learn from your mistakes, be fearless, and above all, have fun. These are the organizations that have helped growing chefs do everything we've done in the past year. Thank you to them. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you gained something from that, because I certainly had fun. Thank you.